Letting go is not forgetting, and the moment you truly understand that, your entire relationship with pain begins to change. Have you ever noticed how some memories refuse to leave? No matter how much time passes, no matter how many new people enter your life, there are certain faces, certain words, certain moments that seem permanently carved into your soul. Maybe it's the person who walked away. Maybe it's the friend who betrayed you. Maybe it's the version of yourself that existed before everything changed. And perhaps you've spent years fighting those memories, trying to erase them, trying to move on, trying to convince yourself that healing means never thinking about them again. But what if that's the very thing keeping you trapped? What if letting go was never about deleting a chapter of your life? What if real freedom comes from something entirely different? Imagine carrying a heavy stone in your hand every day. At first, the weight feels unbearable. You become obsessed with throwing it away. But then one day you realize something surprising. The stone isn't hurting you because it exists. It's hurting you because you're gripping it so tightly. And suddenly, everything changes. Because the secret isn't making the stone disappear. The secret is opening your hand. Tonight, we're going to explore one of the most misunderstood truths about healing, attachment, grief, and emotional freedom. A truth understood by Buddha, explored by Carl Jung, reflected upon by Marcus Aurelius, and experienced by every human being who has ever loved something they eventually had to lose. By the end of this video, you may still remember the people who hurt you. You may still remember the dreams that never came true. But those memories will no longer own you, and that changes everything. Part 1. The pain isn't the memory, it's the resistance. Most people believe suffering comes from what happened to them. The breakup, the betrayal, the rejection, the loss. But ancient wisdom traditions repeatedly point toward a different conclusion. The suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from our refusal to accept that it happened. Think about standing in the ocean. When a wave approaches, you have two choices. You can move with it, or you can stand rigid and fight against it. The stronger you resist, the harder the wave crashes into you. Life works in much the same way. Many people spend years arguing with reality. They replay conversations that ended long ago. They imagine alternate versions of the past. They create endless scenarios where things happen differently, and without realizing it, they become prisoners of a reality that no longer exists. Carl Jung once observed, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." This is not merely philosophy, it's psychology. The more energy you spend pushing a memory away, the more attention you give it. The more attention you give it, the stronger it becomes. It's like trying not to think about a white bear. The moment someone tells you not to think about it, what happens? The image immediately appears in your mind. Many people spend their lives trying to forget, yet every attempt to forget becomes another reminder. The real turning point arrives when you stop treating the memory like an enemy. Because not every painful memory is meant to be erased. Some are meant to be understood. Some are meant to teach. Some are meant to transform you. The moment you stop asking, "How do I forget this?" and start asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" the entire journey changes direction. Suddenly the memory loses its power to wound, not because it vanished, but because you finally stopped fighting it. And that is where true healing begins. Part 2. The difference between attachment and love. There is a reason certain goodbyes hurt more than others. It's not always because we loved more deeply. Sometimes it's because we became attached more deeply. And love and attachment, despite looking similar from the outside, are not the same thing. Love says, "I appreciate your existence." Attachment says, "I need your existence to feel complete." Love is freedom. Attachment is dependency disguised as devotion. Many people discover this only after loss. When someone leaves, they believe they miss the person, but if they look carefully, they often find something else beneath the pain. They miss the future they had imagined. The conversations that never happened, the plans that never unfolded, the life story they had already written in their mind. In other words, they are mourning possibilities, not realities. Imagine buying a ticket for a beautiful destination. For months you dream about the journey. You picture the beaches, the sunsets, the adventures. Then suddenly the trip is cancelled. Part of your disappointment comes from losing the destination, but another part comes from losing the fantasy you built around it. Relationships often work the same way. We don't merely attach ourselves to people, we attach ourselves to our expectations, and expectations can become chains. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the primary causes of suffering, not because love is wrong, but because we suffer whenever we insist that life must unfold according to our plans. The truth is difficult to accept. People change, circumstances change, seasons change. Nothing remains exactly as it is. Yet we often demand permanence from a world built on impermanence. And when reality refuses to obey our wishes, pain arrives. Letting go begins when you recognize that loving someone does not require possessing them. It does not require controlling outcomes. It does not require forcing a story to continue beyond its natural ending. True love allows gratitude to exist without ownership. It says, what we shared mattered. What we experienced was real. And even if it is over, it remains part of my journey. That realization changes everything, because now you no longer need the past to return. You no longer need another chance. You no longer need the story rewritten. You simply honor what was, and then you continue walking forward, not because it meant nothing, but because it meant something. And some chapters are valuable precisely because they end. The moment you understand this distinction, you stop chasing ghosts. You stop begging life to reverse itself. And for the first time, your heart begins to loosen its grip on what was never meant to stay forever. Part 3. Why acceptance isn't surrender. There is a quiet misunderstanding that keeps millions of people trapped in emotional suffering. They believe that accepting what happened means approving of it. They believe acceptance means weakness. They believe acceptance means surrendering to injustice, betrayal, heartbreak, or loss. So they refuse. They fight reality with every ounce of strength they have. Years pass, sometimes decades, and they remain emotionally frozen in a moment that no longer exists. But acceptance is not saying what happened was right. Acceptance is saying what happened, happened. There is an enormous difference. Imagine a sailor caught in a violent storm. The sailor cannot command the ocean to become calm. He cannot argue with the wind. He cannot negotiate with the waves. His survival begins the moment he accepts the conditions he is facing. Only then can he make wise decisions. Only then can he move forward. Life demands the same wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Notice what he did not say. He did not promise control over people. He did not promise control over outcomes. He did not promise control over loss. He promised control over your response. And that is where freedom lives. Many people spend years waiting for closure from someone else. They wait for an apology, an explanation, a confession, a final conversation. They tell themselves, once I get answers, I'll finally move on. But life rarely provides such perfect endings. Sometimes the person who hurt you never understands your pain. Sometimes the person who left never comes back. Sometimes the questions remain unanswered forever. If your healing depends on someone else's actions, then your peace remains in their hands. Acceptance changes that, because acceptance stops asking life to become different before you allow yourself to heal. It says, I may never understand everything. I may never receive the closure I wanted, but I refuse to let this moment define the rest of my life. And suddenly, something remarkable happens. Your energy returns. The energy once spent replaying the past becomes available for building the future. The emotional chains begin to weaken. The wound may still exist, but it no longer controls every decision you make. This is why acceptance is not surrender. Surrender is helplessness. Acceptance is clarity. Surrender says, I can't do anything. Acceptance says, I can't change the past, but I can choose what happens next. And that choice is where transformation begins. Because the day you stop fighting reality is the day reality stops defeating you. The battle ends, and for the first time in a very long time, you become free enough to begin again. Part 4. The one truth that makes letting go possible. There is one truth that changes everything, one truth so simple that most people overlook it. Yet once you understand it, letting go stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like wisdom. Here it is. Nothing that was truly meant for your growth is ever wasted. Read that again. Nothing that was truly meant for your growth is ever wasted. Not the heartbreak, not the disappointment, not the betrayal, not the years that seem lost. Because every experience leaves something behind, a lesson, a strength, a deeper understanding, a wiser version of yourself. The problem is that when we're in pain, we focus only on what was taken. We rarely notice what was given. Think about a forest after a wildfire. At first glance, everything appears destroyed. The landscape looks ruined, dead, hopeless. But beneath the ashes, something extraordinary is happening. New growth is preparing to emerge. Seeds that could not open before are beginning to bloom. Life is quietly rebuilding itself. Human beings are no different. Some of your greatest transformations were born from experiences you never wanted. The breakup that taught you self-respect, the rejection that redirected your life, the failure that forced you to discover your true strength, the loss that revealed what truly matters. Looking back, many people eventually realize a surprising truth. The event they once called their greatest disaster became their greatest teacher. This doesn't mean suffering is good. It means suffering can be meaningful, and meaning changes everything. Friedrich Nietzsche famously wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The deeper lesson is not that pain disappears. The lesson is that pain becomes easier to carry when it serves a purpose. When you understand this, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" And you begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift transforms victims into students. It transforms wounds into wisdom. It transforms endings into beginnings. And suddenly, letting go no longer feels like abandoning the past. It feels like honoring it. Because you realize something beautiful. You do not need to erase a chapter to turn the page. You do not need to forget a person to move forward. You do not need to destroy a memory to free yourself from it. The memory can stay. The lesson can stay. The gratitude can stay. Only the suffering has to leave. That is the truth most people spend years searching for. Letting go is not forgetting, it is understanding. Understanding that life was never asking you to erase the past. It was asking you to stop living inside it. Tonight, before you leave this video, I want you to think about one person, one memory, or one chapter of your life that you've been struggling to release. Ask yourself honestly, am I holding on to the memory, or am I holding on to my resistance to it? Because there is a profound difference. The memory may remain for years, perhaps forever, but it does not have to control your peace. It does not have to dictate your future. It does not have to define who you become. The strongest people are not those who forget. The strongest people are those who remember without becoming prisoners of remembrance. They carry the lesson. They release the burden. And they continue forward with wisdom instead of resentment. So if this message found you at the right moment in your life, remember this: you are not being asked to forget. You are being invited to understand, and understanding is where freedom begins.